Today, I'm going to be showing all of you the VNG goggles, which was one of the most enlightening parts of my trip to the Functional Neurology Center. Using these goggles and looking at my eye movements, Dr. Schmoe was able to figure out exactly what kind of problems I've been having with my vestibular system and cognitive issues and so much more by looking at the eye movements. So this is really enlightening, and I'm looking forward to showing you guys everything. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hope After Head Injury YouTube channel. I'm Christabel Braden. I'm a brain injury survivor, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my treatment at the Functional Neurology Center. Now, I've never actually done this before. For many years, I've been super open about my brain injury journey as far as a lot of the things that I've gone through and the treatments I've gotten through my podcast, Hope Survives Brain Injury podcast, through my online community, Hope After Head Injury on Facebook, or our live videos every Tuesday night, or on YouTube. But I've never actually showed you guys and filmed my assessments and exactly what's going on. And so, you know, it's a little bit, not nerve-wracking, but I'm pretty much going to show you guys everything that I am currently dealing with. Now, this is over a decade later after my first brain injury. And so I've gone through many years of trying to find answers and figure out what's going on. If you haven't yet seen my previous video called Hope for Brain Injury Recovery, How Functional Neurology Helped Me, that explains a lot more of the history of everything. But today I'm going to share with you guys the VNG goggles, which was so cool to see my eye movements and how that can help to determine exactly what's going on up here with my brain injury and how it can help to show what needs to be treated. Now, when you watch these videos, Dr. Schmoe is going to be talking about my results, but he's also going to be explaining what are some things that are typically seen in brain injury and what are some things that he typically sees too. And so I hope that it's really educational for you guys as far as how the eyes are connected to everything going on in the brain. I recently visited the Functional Neurology Center in Minnetonka, Minnesota, and I went there for a 3-day intensive. So on the first day, they put me in these goggles to help to assess what was going on with my eye movements. I'm about to put these goggles on.
So you see your eyeballs on the screen there. You want to hold them in place with that.
That's my eyes live feed. And this is what's going on.
You feel all right?
Mm-hmm. This is for the testing. So basically, I sat in this room and they tested my eyes in the dark so that they could see how my eyes reacted in the dark. And then I looked at the screen and I saw all these different things coming across the screen and move my eyes around so that they could get an accurate read as to what was going on neurologically.
Okay, so here's your eyes in the dark, and that's your right eye, that's your left eye. So what I'm looking at is, where does this white light hit on the pupil, and see if there's any changes between the left eye and the right eye. Then you can see, this white light here is a little bit more lateral on the pupil. And then when you look at this graph here, the blue and the red, they're not right on top of each other. So it means that your right eye is slightly converged in. It's a little bit of a convergence excess. And then when you look at this bottom line, you just see a slope, and it's just going down. So your eyes are actually slowly drifting down. Can you see that a little bit? So it's just kind of just a slow drift down. There's a little fast phase back right.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's not a lot of jerkiness. There's not a lot of nystagmus. So there's not a slow phase, fast phase. There's just a little bit of a slope going down. So we're going to do some rehab, see if it changes. We're not sure if it's super significant or not, but we'll do some rehab to try and get that slope to go away and see if your balance gets better. But when I see slow phases, so when I see the eyes just slowly go down, I think, instability in some areas in your central vestibular system in the brainstem. And then that kind of lines up with your balance being off.
So here on the first day, looking at my eyes and how they slope downward, he's saying, we're not sure if it's really significant or not. So he was able to do more testing. So my next videos are going to show you guys what that looks like. And we found out that it pretty much is really significant, but that'll be shown in a later video when I show you guys more of what happened. But what I found really interesting was that the eye movements were able to show not only vestibular system issues and eye movement things, but also my dysautonomia, which previously I had gotten tested on a tilt table test and a Holter monitor, and I actually got a dysautonomia diagnosis at the cardiologist. But he was able to see in my eyes some of the autonomic dysfunction that was going on.
Yeah, then this pupil over here is slightly larger than this pupil. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. We know that you have some autonomic, dysfunction because you felt lightheaded on the tilt table and your heart rate increased. So we're going to do some work on your autonomics and do some work to get these eyes to not drift down so much. So you see how this kind of looks like it almost drifts down, right? It starts up and then these lines are kind of rocky. So when you watch this, you're going to see your pupils going in and out quite a bit, but then you can actually see your eyes moving slightly in the vertical plane. So they're a little rocky in through here. So there's definitely some changes in integrators in the brainstem that hold your eyes steady. So there's basically some intrusion, some oscillation of your eyes moving up and down. You see that?
Yeah.
All right, so what we want to do is try and make that line flat, get that to go away. And then you should see improvements in your ability to, close your eyes and stay steady. So you got a mismatch between, what your visual system's telling you, all right? Because your eyes are actually unsteady when you're out of the dark and you're looking at something. But then even with your eyes closed, you're getting some mismatch of information that's coming in from your vestibular system. And that's why you look so kind of clunky and jerky when you're marching in place when you don't have vision.
Why I feel clunky and jerky when I walk around.
Yeah, so you got two things. So it's like you walk around, you're getting bad information, and you're getting bad information from your muscles, and you're getting bad information from your ear. So you have a visual mismatch, a vestibular mismatch, and a proprioceptive mismatch all combined together. And it's the job of the cerebellum to integrate that stuff.
Now, I really appreciated the way he explained that there's some mismatch of information. So like my eyes and my vestibular system, my dysautonomia, all these different things are feeding my brain different information, which is partly why I feel so off balance and confused and getting headaches a lot, feeling that brain fog and just feeling off all the time. And so it's really empowering to know that there's a reason why I feel so off all the time.
Even when you're going left and right, if you actually watch the video, you'll see that your eyes will do some movement in the vertical plane. So they're kind of bobby, right? Anytime you see motion that's occurring in the vertical when you're going horizontal, I think there's something going on in your graviceptive vestibular system. So your eyes should just go left and right. They shouldn't go like this. So there's some sort of mismatch that's going on for some vertical systems that are firing too much. So if you're doing a lot of side-to-side movement, you're going like this, you might actually feel maybe a little rocky or unsteady. And then this is cool because it actually gets better the faster that you go. So it goes faster and then you start to go more horizontal. But when things are just moving really, really slow, right? Sometimes with people, it's not always the fast stuff. It can be the slow things that are hard. So if you're talking with somebody and they're just kind of moving around like this and you're just oh my God, I'm starting to feel kind of this rocky rolly when they're doing some slow stuff with their hands.
Could that be my problems with reading music as I'm trying to play the piano?
Yeah, so it's not always the quick eye movements. It's not always just stuff like this. Sometimes it's just the slow things, So when I think the slow stuff, when I see the eyes being unbalanced, I think very, very midline cerebellar dysfunction. And I can kind of pinpoint it to what specific lobe of the cerebellum, whether it affects the legs or affects the neck or the head more. So we'll take a look at some other things and I'll be able to tell you, hey, is that this area, the cerebellum, or this area? And then we can get more specific with the eye exercises that we do to kind of activate certain pathways over others.
Yeah,
So that's how
good.
specific that you can get with the rehab based off of what you see on the exam. When you're doing the vertical pursuits, actually everything looks really good. So things are nice and smooth as you're going up and down. So with concussion and TBI, it's not always, you don't always want to just look at the bad stuff. Like you want to look at what's good, because you can use what's good to help fix people. All right. Sometimes if you find something that's bad and then you just keep doing that thing that's bad over and over again, sometimes you enforce some autonomic dysfunction. So those things are really hard for people. So if you just keep doing it, so if you have a hard time, say, going left and right, you just have them go left and right 100 times, well, that's what the problem is, but they might be very fatigable with doing that exercise, if that makes sense. So you want to see what's good, you want to see what's bad, you want to see what eye movements make people's pupils more steady. So sometimes we want to do things in the vertical plane, but get really specific so we can balance it out so your eyes don't go up and down. Does that make sense? So your eyes are going, they're doing this motion, they drift down. So what we want to do is cancel out the drift down and make your vertical ones even better going up. And then get that to go away. So then when you do horizontal, that your eyes are steady. So what we don't want to do is have you just do all of this vestibular rehabilitation left and right and have your eyes bouncing up and down the whole time.
So a couple years ago when I was in vestibular rehab,
Mm-hmm.
and they would just have me do exercises all the time, and I would feel horribly symptomatic and awful when I'd be in the office and then when I would leave, because we were just working the stuff that was wrong the whole time. But I would feel worse, and they would say, well, yeah, you're going to feel symptomatic, but you're doing exercises that help.
Yeah.
But it ultimately did not help.
I think concussion and traumatic brain injury rehabilitation with vestibular is just different than if you're working just a peripheral ear vestibular issue. All right, so those things, like, you want to work it, you want to like habituate the system and get it to adapt. With concussion, like, all the pathways are working, they're just very unstable. So you have neurons that are firing, and they fire and then they fatigue, and they fire and they fatigue. So you got to be very careful with what you do. It's like every little head movement, every eye movement, like, everything matters. And if you can get more specific and then figure out people's fatigability, then you don't push them past the limit where you kick them into nausea and more autonomic dysfunction. So sometimes you got to push it a little bit, but then you got to know like when to back down. But then we have therapies that we can do to like calm your system down. So we might do like a hand movement could make you feel better, or pulling on a finger, or giving you some body feedback, or stimulating on the tongue to activate some areas in the brainstem, or stimulating your vagus nerve. So we want to work it, get it to a point where it can help activate your system, build some plasticity, but don't push it past that limit and have you blow up. All right. So now we're looking at your saccades. So fast eye movements to targets, which you do hundreds of thousands of saccades every day. But what you see here is like as you move your eyes, once you get to the target, then your eyes are not steady on the target. All right. So you can actually like see them doing a little bit of that kind of vertical rocky motion. All right, and a lot of that has to do with gaze holding centers in the brainstem and how the cerebellum is talking to it, but you can generate all the quick eye movements. So with frontal lobe trauma, frontal lobe injury, what you'll see is an increased latency of saccades. So the target goes and you have a hard time getting started. Like, that's really not your problem. Like, you can get started, you can make it to the target, but once you land on the target, then your eyes just kind of go into that rocky motion. So there's some areas in how the cerebellum is talking to your brainstem to fire different integrators to get your eyes to be steady. So if you're moving your eyes all around and you're getting to the target and then your eyes bounce, then that's a problem, right? That's going to lead to fatigue, because every little letter that you're reading, you're doing all of these little quick saccadic eye movements. So if you're trying to read horizontally and you have a hard time saccading, and then you get to the target and then your eyes are going, it's going to make it hard to do your music. So these are a little slow, but once you get to the target, then your eyes are steady. So we can use things like this. So we can have you do some vertical eye movements, speed them up, get you to land on the target. And then once we get you to land on the target, then go in there and start doing some gaze stabilization. So with you, what we don't want to do is have you just look at dots and then just sit there and rock your head, because your eyes are going to be moving. So what we want to do is have you move your eyes quick, get to the target, stay focused, and then move your head. These are the optokinetic reflexes. So we bring a pattern in front of you, and what you're going to do is your eyes will just reflexively pick up the target and do this motion, which is really cool. So like say if you came up to a train track and you stopped at the train track and you looked at it, your eyes are just naturally going to do this movement, and you'll feel like a sensation that you're kind of moving. Right, we like to look at left and right, look at the slow phase of it, and then kind of the quick motion back. And you'll see that with you, when you go to the left, you have a really good like fast phase, but there's not that much of kind of like that initial slow phase. And that kind of lines up with, you have some parietal lobe findings where your sensation is all off on that right side of your body. So we want to do things on the right side of your body, and that can actually help your eye movements. So you don't always have to do a bunch of eye exercises to make eye movements better, because eye movements come from different networks and circuits in the brain. So you could do like a hand movement or pull on a finger or give feedback from the body, or electrically stimulate on the tongue or ankle and actually make stuff like this better. So you can make people feel more balanced by using the body to stimulate the cerebellum to help with the eye movements. So going over to the left is not as good as when you go to the right. You go to the right and you have more of that. You see how it's more of like a slow phase and then a fast phase, so it's a little bit more normal. And then you felt symptomatic when those targets were moving left and right. Yeah. All right, so these are very primitive kind of visual vestibular reflexes. You just bring it in front of people and it activates circuits in the brainstem, and your eyes will just naturally do this stuff. All right, you can also have people like count the strip, or bring this up and go, hey, I want you to like count each red. That's a little bit different than when you just move it in front of somebody on a big screen. So when you do this, you can pull things out where people might feel like, ooh, I feel rocky or I feel dizzy. But then when you do the small one, they're like, I don't know, I feel pretty fine, all right? But we can do very specific motions in the gyrostim chair, very specific vestibular techniques to get these reflexes to be more balanced. And you need these reflexes to be able to walk, tolerate movement, crowds, stuff moving around you. Yeah, so the vertical ones look good. They're nice and crisp, they're fast, they're accurate. You have a good slow phase, you have a good fast phase. So I think what's going on is that you got, some areas of your brain that are just doing too much for vertical. So these look good, but they can actually be a problem. So sometimes the good stuff can be a problem for your brain if it's not matched with other issues. So say if the left and right's not good, but the up and down is like really, really good, that's a mismatch. So what you want to do is find the good stuff, see what is off and not working as good. And sometimes it's the good stuff that makes people feel bad, which is weird. So you just want to get a better balance between left and right and up and down, and that's what we're going to do. So all of our rehab is going to be aimed at activating your left parietal lobe, your right cerebellum, some areas in the brainstem to get your eyes to be more level, get your eyes not to drift, and then get them not to go like this as you're following targets left and right, and then you should feel more steady. When you feel more steady and have better body awareness, when you march in place, you're going to know where your feet are, and then what you'll see is then your neck will start to loosen up because your head's not going to tilt. So because you have this aberrant ocular tilt reaction, your neck is going to be really, really tight all the time. So what we got to do is get this side to come down, this side to pop up, and just get your vestibular reflexes to be more aligned, and then you should feel better with your walking, feel more balanced. And I know that it can happen because as soon as I put you down and you lie on your back, then your eyes become more level. So I don't think it's purely just an eye muscle weakness issue where you just need vision therapy. I think it's more of a central brain integrating issue, and it has to do with some pathways in your cerebellum and your vestibular system. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for this first part, we really figured out what exactly was going on. Next, I'm going to show you guys some of the treatments, some things that they did, including the lasers and the gyrostim and VR, virtual reality, and what that did and how it helped and how it revealed other things going on with my nervous system and my brain and vestibular system and everything. So stay tuned, subscribe, and I'm excited to share more with you guys. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments below. I would love to see them and can hopefully help to answer some of you guys' questions. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.